Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
This is just flat out unbelievable. Let's go! Let's go! Come on! Are you serious? The Eagles make the playoffs at 9-7. I feel like I'm having deja vu. I remember last year coming in here being all fired up. The Eagles found a way to get into the playoffs on the last week of the season. And once again, they do it again. 9-7. It's a trash record. I understand that. But the NFC East was available to be won at 9-7, and they made the most of their opportunities. The struggles with injuries throughout the entire season, throughout this game in particular against the Giants, it was so nuts. And there's so much to talk about when it comes to this game. I just want to throw out a disclaimer here. This is being recorded instantly right after the football game, so I do not know the score of the 49ers or the Seahawks yet. That game did not even kick off. We have plenty of time to talk about the opponent. I just want to appreciate what the Eagles did in this Giants game and throughout the season, really, to get to this point. It takes balls to get here from where they were at 5-7 after a Miami Dolphins loss. We have questioned Doug Pederson at times and his play calling and his decision making. There is something that Doug Pederson is consistently doing in December, and that's winning football games. There's something that he is consistently doing with this team, and that's keeping them on the same page, dialed in, no matter what their record is or no matter how they're playing. He has everyone focused and bought into the system. It's miraculous. It really is. Wow, wow, wow. They definitely made us sweat this one out. It wasn't as if it was a cakewalk through this game. It was tied in the fourth quarter, but that fourth quarter was dominated by the Eagles' defense getting to Daniel Jones and making plays, and the offense moved the ball. Boston Scott, Carson Wentz. Oh, it was electric, and there's so much to dive into. But before we do, we need to hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Do you want free money? Do you want to go to games and get $20 off of your total purchase? Well, it's a no-brainer. All you need to do is use the promo code BROADS today, and you get $20 off of your tickets. You could put that towards parking, beer, food. Promo code BROADS. Get yourself to a game soon. So many injuries in this game. To lose Miles Sanders, first off, to not have Zach Ertz, and that was something we discussed before the game even started. Carson Wentz's safety blanket, not even involved for this game from the jump. So play that into effect. Then Miles Sanders leaves the game, and here comes Boston Scott for more touches. And oh yeah, by the way, he was unbelievable, scoring 3 touchdowns and making people miss, juking people out of their cleats, doing spinoramas, nonchalant spinoramas, but doing spinoramas, getting in the end zone. How about that? They had to deal with Brandon Brooks leaving the game. Matt Pryor has to step in. And guess what? He was making big-time blocks for Boston Scott to get into the end zone for 7 points at one point. I mean, it's insane how everyone is stepping up. Wait till you hear the names I talk about when it comes to the receivers making plays for Carson Wentz. Rob Davis. Who the hell is Burnett? I follow this team every single day. And of course I did hear the name. When I say this, I'm kind of being a jerk off, you know what I mean? But who the hell is Burnett? I never even heard of this guy, and he's making plays out there for Carson Wentz when Carson Wentz is rolling out to his right, and he throws a big throw. I mean, it's insane. That's the only way to describe it. It's insane. All these players stepping up. Josh Perkins with the big touchdown, and oh, don't forget about that pass from Carson Wentz when he goes from the right side of the field across his body to the left side of the field and throws it perfectly in the breadbasket where there's a defender on him. Oh, man. Avonte Maddox leaves the game. That's fine. LeBlanc, he had so many pass breakups in this one. He had one on a crucial 4th and 4, which ended up then leading to a sick pass by Wentz to Dallas Goedert on a 3rd and 8 over by the sidelines. And then that leads to a touchdown by Boston Scott. Oh, I can't wait to watch the extended highlights 2 million times before bed tonight. Carson Wentz delivered. 4,000 passing yards this season. No receiver with over 500. The closest was Alshon Jeffrey with 490. He made it happen. There was a point in the season where people questioned, what is he? What is he? I mean, it's crazy. I wonder what Nelson Aguilar is thinking right now. I wonder what Alshon Jeffrey is thinking about right now. If he was the snitch. If he was the one talking with Josina Anderson. There was someone else, by the way, who left this game who was very important, and that was Brandon Graham. He left the game. He went back into the locker room. There were so many people trying to use the tent. There was a line outside. A line outside the tent trying to get in. Craig James was in there at one time, hogging up all the people in there. Like, come on, Craig James, who are you? If Brandon Graham's sitting outside, let's go. Craig James, get the hell out of there. What is this? Carson Wentz put the team on his back throughout the last few weeks. And he delivered in this one. This was close. I mean, it really was close. The Eagles dominated time of possession, dominated how many yards. You know, when you look at the yards comparison, it was all Eagles. But it didn't show on the scoreboard. Early in the game, the Eagles moved the football. And it was after Boston Scott actually muffed the first kickoff. It gave the Eagles bad field position. They moved downfield. They end up going for it down in the Giants' territory. Didn't even come up with any points, but they moved the ball downfield very well. Then they go on it again where they provide some sort of spark offensively. They move the football downfield and they kick a field goal. Which, by the way, I got to give props to Jake Elliott. He hit 2 field goals, and one of them was a 50-yarder in the fourth quarter to go up 20-17. He's been missing. And I even stated it when we were previewing this game. It concerns me that he has been off. It concerns me that he has been missing plays. And it was a conversation that was barely getting talked about entering this game because, you know, the kickers don't get much credit for stuff and they don't get talked about a lot. I get it, but it's a big part of the game. I mean, points are important, right? Isn't that how this works? You score more points, you win games. So the kickers are very important. And with him being in somewhat of a slump, I was concerned that he might miss 1 or 2. Well, he was 2 for 2 in this one and came up really big in the fourth quarter. And I'm happy for him because if anything's going to happen next weekend, we're going to need him to be able to provide as much as we possibly can. Carson Wentz throws a bomb to Rob Davis downfield. It was around 40-yard gain. But it gets called back because of a Vitae holding. Very disappointing at the time. This is right after, I believe. Let me look through my notes here. I believe this was right after, yes, the Barkley 68-yard touchdown where Barkley just broke free after only having 10 yards in the game as a whole at that point deep into the third quarter. He breaks free and then finds a way to score a 68-yarder. And instantly, I think the Eagles are finally gaining something offensively and being able to move the sticks. And it gets called back. I'm so disgusted. It's a 1st and 20. And what does Carson do? He rolls to his right and then has a 40-yard gain to Burnett. It's almost laughable. Really, it's laughable when I'm naming these players. But they all stepped up. They all made plays. Let's talk about the defense for a bit. Wow. I mean, Jim Schwartz deserves credit. He gets so crushed. I mean, he just gets crushed. And sometimes it's deserving, but I've always been a Jim Schwartz supporter this year. It's funny, this year. I say this year because I wasn't in the past, but I've realized this year he knows what the hell he's doing. And he did not allow Saquon Barkley to do a damn thing until that touchdown play, which happens. I mean, there was some sort of, I wouldn't say miscommunication, but Nigel Bradham and Ronnie McLeod ran into each other. Nigel Bradham was getting blocked. I believe it was Nigel Bradham on the replay, but Ronnie McLeod and another player on the Eagles ran into each other. It was a brutal play, not going to lie, especially because the Eagles just scored to make it 17-10, so it was deflating. But all around, what the defense did was unbelievable. They forced Daniel Jones to beat them. Now, there were two plays throughout the entire game that stood out to me, and it was the 68-yarder and a chunk play on Rasul Douglas. Now, Rasul Douglas was getting targeted, and some throws were underthrown, and that definitely helped out Rasul Douglas. But as a whole, he held in there. All right, he hung in there. I'm not going to give him too much credit, but I'm not going to absolutely destroy him either. He hung in there. Sidney Jones, on the other hand, I mean, whoa. He's got some confidence right now. He makes 2 plays throughout the last couple of weeks, and then he comes into this one and plays legit minutes and does okay. Does well. Has an interception late in the game. All right, Sidney. The weakest part of this team coming into it was definitely the cornerbacks. And I thought as a whole, they did plenty. Between Avonte Maddox, LeBlanc, Sidney Jones, and then Rasul Douglas. Got beat at times, but made up for it at times and had some help with some bad throws. But all around the cornerbacks, fine. For me to step back and say there were 2 plays the Giants made that stung, I'll take that any day of the week. Malcolm Jenkins, a leader. Just a leader. Are you serious with that type of day? How many tackles did he have? He had 8 solos. He had the forced fumble where big Fletcher Cox is beating out other guys to scoop up the ball right at the goal line. I wish he got into the end zone. But how about Fletch working his ass off to get to that ball? That was a game-changing play. From there, the Eagles really took it over. They definitely took control of that fourth quarter, but it all started with Malcolm Jenkins, a big-time leader, and Fletcher Cox getting down there to scoop it up and recover it. A big-time leader. Brandon Graham, I know he left the game at times, but when he was in there, talk about effective. Beating double teams. Making plays. Credit to this defense. The defensive line started to eat in that fourth quarter. Getting to Daniel Jones, getting sacks. And that's when the Eagles had all the momentum, had all the swag, and you can just sense the Giants were giving up at that point. They didn't have much left. But it wasn't easy. I know the score reads 34-17. It wasn't easy. They made us sweat it out. We got nervous. It looked like the Eagles were in control, but it didn't read that way on the scoreboard. The Giants start creeping into it. They tied the game. It didn't look pretty the whole time. But you got to credit this squad, and you got to credit Doug Pederson. And Mike Groh. You have to. You got to credit Mike Groh. And even in the press conference afterwards, I heard Doug Pederson a little bit before I hopped on here to record, and he praised Mike Groh. That's the type of coach Doug Pederson is. He knows Mike Groh has been getting criticized all season long, so when he has an opportunity to shine light on him, he's totally going to do it. But for them to come up with a game plan with those players, it's remarkable. It's mind-blowing. But when I take a step back and I look at this team right now, I know it's different than the Steelers because the Steelers went with the quarterback problem. They had so many injuries to the quarterback. They're working with their third string, their fourth string. It's totally a mess once you get to that type of injuries with a quarterback position. It's not the same as wide receivers and running backs, and I totally understand that. But it is similar in terms of how the hell did Doug Pederson do this? How did Doug Pederson get this team to 9-7 when they were 5-7 and lost to the Miami Dolphins? How did he keep everyone in control? How did he come up with the game plan offensively to move the chains? How does he become so effective with these screen passes? You know the other teams see it week after week. The screen passes are utilized all the time. How does it work so much? How does it gain so many yards? Boston Scott had this one screen pass where he catches it off of his fingertips with one hand, ropes it into his body, and then goes on a big gain down the sideline, breaking tackles. For the offensive line to produce the way that they produced, things were a little sloppy at times, but they picked it up. They got it together. Sayamalu, Jason Peters on that left side. Jason Kelsey leading the blocks. I mentioned Matt Pryor once Brandon Brooks went down, and Vitae did have a hold, which costed the Eagles. But guess what? Carson Wentz and Burnett, of all people, had his back, said, yo, Vitae, we'll do this again. Don't you worry about it. Boom, which led to a field goal. Jordan Howard, let's get to him real quick with Jordan Howard. He didn't play in this game. I mean, he had the snap, but the ball didn't go to him. It seemed as if it was never really a mindset to get him going in this game. It was interesting. I guess he's somewhat cleared, but not really ready to go. I don't know what that means for his status down the road. But with Miles Sanders going out, with just Boston Scott, it was interesting to see Boston Scott so utilized the whole time. How about this? Boston Scott and Dallas Goedert helps the Philadelphia Eagles beat the New York Giants. Let's go! I haven't been this emotional for a game all season long. Last week against the Dallas Cowboys, I definitely was when it comes to how I felt in my stomach, but I was a little bit more laid back. I haven't really had that feeling or that urge to be 5 inches from my TV, screaming, fist pumping, going nuts, F-bombs, and going through my vents where the whole family can hear it. I haven't really gotten to that point this season. This game was different. This game was different. I was fired up. I was juiced up. I was so engaged emotionally. It just came out of me. I was going nuts at the TV, and it kind of felt good. Like I've kind of relaxed a little bit when it came to that because I've been aggressive in my day. I'm not going to lie. There were some times where I get over emotional and things get a little crazy. I'm not breaking TVs or punching things or anything. I'm just a screamer at the TV. I like to scream and get out my frustration or get out my the opposite of frustration, my happiness. But in this one, this was the first time. Week 17. It took me 17 weeks with this team. Now, I've mentioned this before. I'm very excited about this. 9-7. I know it's 9-7, but they won the division. That's a goal. I don't want it to be this way every year. I'm excited right now. I'm pumped right now. This is now 2 years in a row. They went on a little journey. But, you know, I don't want this every year. It's nice right now, but if this is how it's going to be 8 years in a row, we gotta switch things up. Carson Wentz, coming into this season, well, here's the thing. It was Super Bowl or bust coming into the season. I get all that. Expectations change once injuries happen, once Carson Wentz somewhat took a step back there for a few weeks. Coming into the season, though, one of the big things we discussed was we need Carson Wentz to stay healthy for 16 games, and we need him to experience playoffs. I know as a whole and as a big picture it was Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, but still within that Super Bowl or bust mentality that we had in August, the story was we need Carson Wentz to stay healthy. We need him to experience a playoff game. Well, here we have it. All right, I mean, hey, fellas, here we have it. We have that right now. We're looking at it. He did it. He made it happen. And you can argue, even though it's not really, but you can argue the last few weeks, I mean, they have been playoff atmosphere type games within the locker room, within the culture, within the team. Because if they didn't win these games, they're done. They're done. And for all those people that said Carson Wentz, this is the biggest game of his career for the last 4 or 5 weeks, bang, bang, bang. He's answering the bell once again, and he's doing it with these players. Now, an interesting discussion I had with Ryan Rothstein on 97.3 ESPN, when we talk about Carson Wentz doing this with all these practice squad players, is that fair? Because is Boston Scott really a practice squad player? Is Greg Ward really a practice squad player? I get that narrative. I think they're better than practice squad players at this point. I mean, they've clearly proven it. Boston Scott had, 138 yards and 3 touchdowns? I mean, that's more than just a practice squad player. But once you start throwing in these Burnett's and these, other players, Josh Perkins and all, once you start getting to those type of players, yeah, kinda, yeah. And this is the first time I mentioned Greg Ward this video. Just another solid performance. He's at the point now, think about this, where, he makes his 5 receptions, he makes his 6 receptions, he's a nice outlet for Carson Wentz, and it goes under the radar because he's just consistent doing it. A couple other guys I got to give a shout out to. Nigel Bradham had 10 tackles. Rodney McLeod with some hard hits. I mentioned he did fumble, and not fumble the football, but fumble a mental mistake there when he ran into a teammate for that Barkley touchdown where he was the last guy back. But he had some hard hits in there. A lot of the guys on the defensive side of the ball stepped up, and it's remarkable. It really is. Wow. For this game, Carson had, what was his stat line? 289 yards. He was 23 of 40. There was one miscommunication play where Boston Scott looked to be turning to the inside, and he did have his man beat. It was a passing play, and Carson Wentz threw it to the right side towards the sideline. Other than that, though, I thought Carson delivered. He was strong. He was smooth. He did what he needed to do. In the rain. Didn't fumble. These two quarterbacks, they fumble a lot. Well, guess who was the one to fumble? It was Daniel Jones. And he wasn't able to make it happen. This is crazy. It really is crazy. So, in terms of the discussion, once we find out the winner of this game, we will absolutely discuss that. I just wanted to get out my instant reaction to the win. I didn't want to wait until after this game. We have plenty of time to talk about the opponent that will be coming to the Link in a hostile environment with the crazy Philadelphia fans. There are a lot of injuries with this team. You know, how long can they really work with this? Who knows? But right now, it's just an exciting time to see them stay together, to see them battle, to see the franchise quarterback really fight through adversity and get his team into the playoffs. So I'm enjoying this right now, and we will see where it leads. But there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.